And we're live.
What up, dude?
Are you talking to me?
No, them.
Talking to them?
Them. All the people that love this guy.
No, that made it weird. How was your week today? This
Good.
week? It was good?
Mm-hmm.
How was your day today?
Good.
It's nice that we
My
have finally
friends
go ahead.
My friends just looked in. I just see a comment just popped up.
The comment did just pop up.
Come up.
That's
a comment popped
That's
up.
Game Crow 88. We're gonna answer that in just a second. So you had a good week, and your friends came over today to play, and we sent them home because we were doing a live feed. We can't have the whole neighborhood in here.
Also, if you're new to this live feed and you didn't see the last one, go and check out my YouTube channel because I was talking about it last time.
Reynolds Gaming, right?
Mm-hmm. Reynolds Gaming. It was the one with my face and my sister's face.
All right, you got it. Give me some love. All right, go have fun. Bye. I'll be back in an hour. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Teacher Sunday Teacher Talk. So many names of stuff. It's like so much alliteration going on. The show where we try and help you out with your stuff on Sunday night, so you're not freaking out for Monday morning. Plus, it's nice out, and everyone that teaches for even 5 minutes knows that it being nice out equals madness. There's kids. I don't know what happens. They get a little vitamin D in them, and they turn it into crazy people. So, what's up, Gamer Crow, Tracy Pinter, Liz? I was just seeing. Thanks. I'm glad that you like that new video. I just put a video out 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago. That it took a while because there was a lot of edits in that. Kayla. What am I looking at on here? Dolly, Kimberly, Brandon. Thanks, Game Crow.
Oh, that's good.
Any advice for tomorrow testing? Got you.
Is that a student?
I'm not sure. Bella Boo's Lunches. How did that name originate? That's a very interesting name. B is for Believe. Renee, what's up? Rebecca, Professor Ben. So I'm glad everyone's here, man. Let's jump into this. So my week. So I just put a video out about my week, and I tried to do a perspective of the students, which I have a lot of footage, but I'm learning things along the way, right? I want to keep doing this because I like the student perspective. One is I cannot record with kids in my room because they either dance around behind me and I have no idea that they're back there, and then I'm watching it because you're trying to watch the lens. And then as I'm editing, I'm like, this dude's dancing behind me, or they're waving, or they're being distracting, or they're just too loud. They'll talk super loud, and then I'll go, dude, I need you to lower your voice. And they go, we are talking with our lowered voice. And I'm like, bro, that is not what I'm talking. I'm talking about a whisper. We are whispering. And I'm like, dude, come on. So I'm learning things along the way. And I'm learning that most of my students mumble all the time. And so when they're speaking, the microphone's not picking up their voice because they talk like this all the time. And I don't really know why. It's like, come on, man. Own that swag. Speak out. Your voice is important. And so we're kind of working on some of those things. So I liked the idea, but it was hard to use a lot of the stuff that I had kind of gathered over the week. So we'll work. It's a work in progress. We'll keep going. Try it again next week. So let's jump into questions. We have anything else? Let's tell people about real quick. May 4th at 4 p.m. until whenever everyone leaves. There is a meetup at Dock Street Pub in West Philadelphia. So if you're in the Philly area, you should come hang out. If you feel awkward about it, don't. It is a pub, but they anyone eats, children eat there. So it's not you don't have to drink if you go, if you're under 21, or if you're, if you're 20 and you're in college, it's cool. You can just show up, and I'll be there with the not so secret wife who really exists. There she is. It's like that scene in Toy Story. Somebody give me a hand here. So let's jump into some of these questions. What was that first one? Because I told him I would come back to it.
9th grade English multiple choice and of course
choice and of course testing. Any advice? Game Crow. So are you a student of mine by any chance? Because people, I can't tell by these names. I would say, geez. So a couple of so here's the thing, right? I tell my students all the time, I want you to read the book. I want you to be invested in the book. I want you to like the book. But sometimes you don't, or sometimes you miss things, or sometimes your professor like tests you on things that you didn't pick up in the book. Like you took a different meaning or a different idea, or certain things stood out to you and not other things. So I like, so watch, because some of this has like special language in it that, maybe if your mom's in the room, you don't want to watch it. And if you're not of age, maybe you don't want to watch it at all. But I think Thug Notes on YouTube is really good. They really like break down the essence of the story. Sometimes we'll watch Thug Notes just as a summary at the end. I think they work well. And then they have an analysis piece at the end of the videos that help you to like break down some of the ideas of like what the writer might have meant or what they were trying to convey in the video. I also think that what's John Green's channel? Just type up John Green, and he does a lot of book reviews that I think are really interesting. Also, my co-teacher watched one for Lord of the Flies recently before we started reading, and I actually learned some new stuff. I've been teaching that book forever, but I always thought, for instance, that Lord of the Flies was supposed to be based during World War II. And it turns out William Golding had this idea where it was supposed to be any war. Like it was supposed to be like almost like setting up the dystopian future where atom bombs were being dropped on London and not just whatever kind of bombs were dropped on London during World War II. So I think that's a good resource. And really, you have to be careful, but SparkNotes has decent videos for some of their books. So they'll also break things down. And so why I think those are important is because if you watch something like that and then you're studying the notes that you have, it makes more sense. It fills in the gaps sometimes that you might not have there. And then I'm a note card guy. Like I think everyone learns differently. There are those evil kids that just sit in class and somehow like soak up all the information. Those dudes always drove me nuts. But making note cards with the question on the front, the answer on the back, I think the more you can mimic a test, the better you will do, which is why when, groups play when teams play scrimmages, they practice the game, right? They're playing a practice game. So that would be my answer to that. What do you got there, love?
If you want to someone said, and Valentine said, I'm a 2-hour train ride away. She doesn't know if she'll be able to make the meetup. And Tracy Pinter said, do another meetup over the summer because she can't come to this one.
Okay, so I will do another meetup over the summer. And New York, is that New York City? Are you coming from?
2-hour train ride away.
Let's see if we can work that out. Maybe we can do something in New York over the summer. That would be cool.
We'll still be there.
We'll still be. What are you talking about?
Like in time, if she wants to.
If you took a train ride?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like look, I'm honored that anybody would show up. I'm honored that my wife shows up every day. That was a little weird. But that's ridiculous. But I'm down to hang out for however long. Like if someone gets there at 8:00, I'm down. I'm not going to waste your time. Like I want to hang out and talk and stuff like that. So Liz, what's up, Liz? I always forget to pass back papers. The bell always rings before I remember. My kids always seem to need some kind of assistance because I teach lower levels. Any advice? I would say I do a couple of things. One, I think the Remind app on your phone is one of the greatest inventions ever because I too forget to hand out papers. So I will set a reminder on my phone to ring like 5 minutes before the end of each period. That reminds me to do it. Or you could make it like if you put them on your desk. So in the back of my room, I need to do like an update for my room. But this year I took milk crates, like those orange milk crates that all the milk comes to your school in. And I have a file folder in there that keeps all the papers I have to hand back. It also holds all the journals for the class so that the kids never have to take certain stuff home and then lose it or leave it in their locker and waste time. It's always in class. So I have certain classes, I have dudes that are in charge of handing stuff back. So every day they come in, they know that that's their job for the week or for the month or for the trimester. And they have to just hand stuff back and then put back the ones that aren't there. I also have students, this is not a question you're asking, but I still do this anyway. If someone's not there, if someone misses an assignment because they were in the office or at the nurse or they went home sick or they were absent that day, that student's job is to write the name of all the students on separate pieces. So like if there's a worksheet that went out, they will write a student's name on the top of that and then put it in the folder. That way, when I'm handing things back, I notice that like, oh yeah, this dude has to finish this assignment. And then it reminds me to hand those back. So I think put the responsibility in someone else's hands, and then you don't have to even worry about it anymore. Clarissa Medina, I had a friend in 4th grade named Clarissa. What tips in terms of answers and preparation do you have for a district job fair? So if you are going,
You're going to a job fair.
Are you? So if you're going to the job fair, I wasn't sure if like she was heading the job fair.
No.
I would say don't try and answer with an answer you think they want. Answer with the answer of who you are, right? So if someone asks like, what are your strengths in the classroom? Don't be afraid to answer that. Like, I feel like that's when I interview people, I am always interested in like what they actually think of themselves and what they actually think their limits are. And I'm always interested in what they already know about the school. So if you're at a fair and you see a school and you want to go up, maybe take like 3 minutes and look them up online and see where they are, what the demographic of the school is, how long they've been around, like what kind of like what that might look like for you to teach there, so that you are informed. That is a big deal to me. When I'm sitting in on an interview and someone comes in and they're being interviewed, if they know about the school that I teach at, or if they know how we're structured or what we think is important, it just shows that you want it more. So I would be prepared with stuff like that as well. And then the looser you can go in, the better off you're going to be, right? Like where you're not kind of freaking out and you're just going to be better off because your answers are going to come off more fluid. You're going to be like, you'll think a lot quicker, I think. I know I do. But if you are freaking out, don't freak out about freaking out. Look, man, you're trying to get a job and essentially someone's judging you on like whether it's your resume or, I don't know, like the answers that you have. So just relax into that and know that like it's okay if you're nervous. Like, maybe go to the school you're not really interested in first, and then kind of work those nerves out, work your answers out, and then like work up to the schools that you're really, really interested in going to, because you'll have practiced that a little bit. And the other thing I would have is just like that first question, I think practicing what you are doing helps, right? So if you want to do layups better in a game, like practice layups. So like sit with someone and have them interview you. There's tons of resources online where you can like go through questions that folks are going to pull from. And that's how I would practice for it. What do you got, dude? Rebecca is asking, how do you deal with teachers trying to take over the project or changing it? Also, how do you tell someone that they are not good for a job? Take over a project and changing it. So I would say, one, I would just be real clear on what you want to do, or say like, or like, what are your roles in that particular project, right? So if I'm assuming this is a teacher and there's another teacher trying to take over a project. So maybe just say like, have the conversation. Like, what do you want out of this? Like, and see where they're going. And then once the sort of guidelines have been hashed out, then you can talk about like, well, look, wait a minute. I thought we were talking about, I was going to do this and you were going to do this. Because then, your place has kind of been determined. But if someone's just trying to step in and take over and do something that you didn't want to do, like, I think it's all about the conversation. I would even maybe take it a step further and talk to another teacher at your school that knows that person and see if there's like a good in for them. Like, it's like someone else might know who they are, how they get. And so they might have dealt with this situation already. It might be easier to like talk to them than to recreate the wheel and try and like just wing it. They might have a better take on that too.
I think those I statements. Did I do something there?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So the not so secret wife is saying that a lot of times what I'll do in school is say like, hey, did I, if someone's trying to do anything that you don't like, put it on you first. Like, did I not understand? Like, were we going to do it this way? And not in a condescending way or being sarcastic, like being honest. Like, wait a minute. I thought what we planned was this. And so like, if I'm wrong, cool. But like, I thought that's what we were doing. So like, I just want to be clear so that we don't go in the classroom and like mess it up or misinform the students as to what's being done. And that puts you, like, the blame on you. And it doesn't come off as aggressive. What do you got, dude?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Dude. Kimberly Wallbach is saying, advice for reading with 3rd and 4th and 5th graders. I would say
reading issues.
I would say one, my man Colby Sharp has a YouTube channel and he is very, very interesting. And so you can just search Colby Sharp. He does book reviews. He talks about books. He's super interested in books. He's super interested in reading. His own children love reading. He is really interested in this idea of like getting kids to read and then not having them be graded on what they're reading, so that they're reading for love and not for like, there's not a certain outcome. Like they don't have to perform well on some sort of test afterwards or something like that. He's like really against like things like accelerated reader. So I think when I think back, the teachers, so there's stuff you learn in the classroom, there's stuff you experience in your own life. I would think back to like what made a big deal in your life when you were at that age. I know in 4th grade, Mrs. Pancherson at the 7th grade elementary school in Haddon Heights, New Jersey, she would read to us every day after lunch. So we would go to lunch, we'd go outside and play, we'd come in and we would read books like The 4th Grade Nothing or My Side of the Mountain. And My Side of the Mountain is still one of my favorite books, and only because Mrs. Pancherson read to us every day and we were quiet, and like she would leave off at the right spot. She would like read with inflection in the right spots. And it just kind of made this magical moment where everyone just had their head down. Everyone was listening. Everyone was calming down from lunch, and it just made a nice transition into the rest of the day. So I think just reading to your students as much as you can. And even if doesn't have to be on grade level, doesn't have to be a long book. It could just be just reading to your kids every day so that they are getting excited about, wow, I didn't know those kinds of books existed. It's too many times we're stuck in the textbook and, maybe trying to find books that your students are going to be interested in also and having them pick them out and not just stuff that interests you. Because sometimes we think we know what our students really want, but we fall short of like what they really want on occasion.
I'm looking for reading difficulties.
Oh, and my wife's. So that's a whole nother conversation. We're going to do a whole video on like reading difficulties and dyslexia and ADHD and stuff. But I think it does also give you an opportunity to like look out for that. Like 1 in 5 kids has dyslexia. And so if your students really don't like reading, it might be because they really struggle with reading. And a lot of kids that have dyslexia think that they can read. They're super confident in their ability, but they don't even realize that they can't read, that they really are struggling. So, looking out for things like that can help as well. And Blanche is asking, 1st year teaching, admin is horrible. Bam. Too many of us know about that. I mean, my current admin at my current school is good, but I've dealt with this in the past. So I'm just letting you know that I've been there. I don't know if this is normal, but I do my best to try and push past, but it really burns me out and makes me lose focus. Any advice dealing with horrible administration? I would say, I know it's hard because some admins seem like they just have zero idea of like what's going on in the building, what's going on with kids. Maybe you take a student to them that's really difficult and they don't have an answer for you, or they tell you you're blowing it out of proportion, or any number of other stupid ideas that they have. I would do a couple of things. I would, one, get together with other teachers. I think building community in your school is the best thing that you can do. And not just people that are going to complain, but people that want to come up with solutions. There have been times when I felt like this, even with my current administration. So like if I'm being a little bit more transparent, the principal that I have this year, it's his 1st year. And he has a lot on his plate and he's trying to figure it out. And I want to be able to support that. So what I try to do is not go to him with every single problem that I have. Like maybe I would have done with previous principals, because there's new teachers in the school and there's enough other stuff going on. So what I try to do is surround myself with folks that are doing good work, that are excited about what they're doing, that are solutions. What am I thinking of? What is the word? Like they're focused on solutions. I was going to say solution oriented. And so, that's, if I have those folks around me, sometimes we can work some problems out by ourselves. And, maybe it's a good idea to talk with those folks and say, all right, what are some things that we're seeing that the school is like not doing well, or that we could do better? And then maybe make a list, come up with some sort of document, and then have, one or two people go in and talk to the principal and say, hey, these are things that we're noticing that really need to be talked about. And could we talk about that? And in a way where you're not trying to like put someone on blast or like down the administration, because that's just going to build resentment and people, get all messed up over that. My admin does this really great thing where, one, they send out a survey at the end of the year that is anonymous and lets people say things that are going on. If you have a group, then you can all kind of be unified on things, and that way the admin will see something being repeated. And also, we do a meeting at the end of the year where we all sit around and kind of like talk about what's going on, what needs to be fixed better for next year, and how can we all play a part in that solution instead of like just complaining and telling the principal. So I just think that those are a couple of options. And yeah, so that's what I would work on. Kayla Crozier, who I think is from New Jersey, if I'm remembering that name right. You're a student in New Jersey that I've talked to. So it says, hello, Reynolds. Are you going to talk about that now? No. Okay. Wanted to ask, since you have worked in the public school atmosphere and now charter school, is there any difference between the both? Like work ethic, pay, kids, etc. So,
and then she said that.
Also, your shirt is giving summer vibes. This is all the wife for life bought me the shirt. Because it's finally 65 degrees out today. And, one of the teachers at school was saying that it felt more like January 105th rather than like April 20th on Friday. So I would say, I think one of the differences that I've noticed is, at least for my school, the charter school that I'm working in, I have way more autonomy than a lot of folks that I know that are teaching in public schools. And so, meaning I get to pick whatever books I want to read. I get to pick the lessons, the tests I write. Everything is, I'd say 90% of what I do is up to me, right? So I teach 9th grade literature. So I picked all 5 of my own books. I switch them from year to year if I want to. I choose my own vocabulary by reading through the books and picking out words that I think are difficult for the students or that I want them to know more about. The way in which I give a test. So my tests are set up in a certain way with like a close reading section on every final for every book, a vocab section for every part, a small multiple choice section, a short answer section. And they're all created in a way that I want. And I just think that that's completely invaluable. I did I forget what the dude's name is, but I did a podcast the other night and I was talking to this gentleman about it. And we were saying how I think that's one of the most important things that schools can do for teachers is give them the freedom in their classrooms to do what they want when they want to, because that just makes you excited about going to work. It makes you excited about the lesson, about the book, about whatever it is you're doing, because it's coming from you and not from some secondary source or some, just like your head of curriculum that sits in the office all day looking up great ideas. And some of those dudes can be really great and some of them are not so great. They're just coming up with new ideas and then changing everything every year, and it makes it hard for you. So I think that's my biggest change. In terms of pay, I think
it depends on the school.
Yeah, it depends on the school. So when I worked in Camden, I had to leave because I just could not afford to work there any longer. I think I could have made more money at a Catholic school. And Catholic schools in the US are notorious for paying very, very low. all of my healthcare stuff is about the same and all of that. I think for me, it came down to mostly what kind of neighborhood, what sort of student did I want to teach? And I'm always been looking for the kids on the margins. That's been my passion. That's who I want to teach. And so that just led me to charter schools, because a lot of inner city neighborhoods have more charter schools. So to me, it didn't really matter, public or private, but now I really do like charter schools. So the Mrs. CJ, because I called someone Mrs. last week, that was Mr.
Yeah.
So, are you hosting teacher talks with educators again this summer? It was the most valuable PD I experienced last summer. So, should I talk about this already or not yet?
Don't talk about it with who, but you can talk about it.
All right. So, what I am doing this summer, I'm not going to tell you who yet, because I'm going to hold that suspense over you. We're kind of solidifying. I have the 2 people in mind, but I'm doing a podcast that will start sometime in the next few weeks with someone very popular on YouTube and someone popular on Instagram, and it is going to be awesome. And the idea for that, to kind of just like talk about that a little bit here, like I literally just solidified those people on Friday. So it's going to be the working idea is, this is what's going on in my classroom right now, talking about some sort of hot topic or something that's going on, something we're seeing on Instagram, in the news, in YouTube, something that is interesting with us in terms of like school and social justice or whatever. And then that will be the meat of it. And then kind of like what we've been consuming, whether it's books or videos or documentaries or just things that are going to make our classrooms better places, that like ways in which we're learning, so that we can share that with other people. So that's going to come out in the next few weeks. I have a phone call tonight about that, as a matter of fact. So I'm super pumped, because I find myself, the older I get, the more I just listen to podcasts, because it's like the radio plays the same song every 5 seconds. So I just consume a lot of that content myself. So, and I didn't want to do a podcast by myself. So that's in the works right now.
It will not be a real Rap with Reynolds thing.
It will not, and it won't be a real Rap with Reynolds thing. It will be like the 3 of us will have like this kind of new thing, this new show, but I will be involved in it, and these 2 other individuals who you're going to love, because I was so stoked that both of them said yes, because I was like, yeah, it's going to be awesome. So stay tuned for that. Liz P says, if you have problems with students making fun of low scores if students pass things back. What do I do if that happens? That's part of the gig. You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to make fun of anyone if you're handing stuff back, or you lose the job. I'm real big on, I make fun of kids a lot in school. I have a lot of jokes. I tease kids a lot. And sometimes, it's always for fun. It's always just out of a sense of playfulness or silliness. And sometimes it's for classroom management. But I despise lazy jokes. So making fun of fat kids for being fat, making fun of the kid with the lisp or the kid with the stutter, that stuff doesn't fly. Like you're not allowed to make fun of dudes for that kind of thing, because it's wrong and it's lazy, and they've been hearing it their whole lives. And so like, take it easy. But if you want to be more creative, I'm down with that, but it has to have a time and a place. One of the things I talk to my boys about is that comedy's comedy, because people are like, comedians know timing. And if you watch any stand-up comedian, they know when to pause, they know when to wait, they know when to move on to the next joke, they know when to like go a little bit further and push it to the edge, but you have to learn that timing. And so handing papers back, I think I'm trusting you with like someone else's personal information. So you have to be cool about it, or you just get crushed. So that's kind of the gig. That's how I picked them out. Did you have one, or am I?
Oh yeah. It's 2 parts. So this one. It says part 1, part 2.
Should I touch it or not?
No.
Okay. No. Nara? I know who you are. I know that, like, I've seen we've talked before online, but I'm going to go with Nara. If I'm not right, could you please correct me? Says, hey, Reynolds, I'm a music teacher out in China. My TA likes to try and quote unquote mess around with the kids like I do because she hasn't built relationships with them and they hate it. Oh, I'll bet. And I don't listen to her and the kids don't listen to her on purpose. Which, what does that mean? Which TBH? Dude, I'm so bad.
Oh. To be honest.
Oh, to be honest,
Jeez.
is there? I know, dude.
You teach high school.
Dude, I am old. She says, which, to be honest, if I was their age, I would too. How can I help her and deal with the kids' disrespect without undermining her authority? So I see this all the time. In the last 3 years, I've had 5, 6 co-teachers, and it's real funny to me when someone comes in and part of it I think is there's a number of things I think about this. And so I'm trying to think of them one at a time. One, I would take it as a compliment. What that person is doing is seeing how you were able to like joke around with the kids and they want to do it also. Just not everyone's good at it, or people's jokes suck or they fall flat and the kids like don't want it. Part of it is you're right, they haven't built the relationship yet, and so they think they can just jump in where you are when you've spent the time building those relationships with students. And some people just aren't funny, and that is a thing also. I would, if you can, try to I would talk to your students about it. Maybe if she's not there one day, or if she's in the office, or if she's late to class, just talk to them about when they are disrespecting her, because if your students really care about you, if they're disrespecting her, that's ultimately creating a problem for you. And so a lot of times I'll tell my guys, I've had co-teachers in the past where they've driven my kids nuts. I had a guy one time that just sat in the back of the classroom in the corner, didn't do any work, and just talked crap or got the kids stirred up when I was trying to teach, and it drove them insane. And so when he wasn't there one day, I said, look, I realize what's going on. I realize how you feel. It is very, very clear to me. But one, it's an adult, so you have to respect them. If you don't like what they're saying, just try to ignore them or bring it to my attention. And two, just remember that it's making my life harder. We care about one another. We need to take care of one another. And it's making my life harder when you are reacting the way that you are to this individual. And then, part of me just thinks that teacher's going to have to learn the hard way. I think sometimes co-teachers can live on the good graces of the other teacher, and that can go vice versa too. So if your main teacher isn't very strong, but you have a very strong co-teacher, the main teacher might think that they're killing it, but they're really just living on the good graces of the help in the room. So I think there's something to say about that also. But yeah, it's a tough situation, but that I would just go right to the kids about it. And if you don't have that time in class, maybe pull your key players, because we all know there's those certain dudes that can really affect the climate in your classroom. Talk to them and ask them yo, can you help me out today? If he says that, just don't react to it. I'm trying to get through my lesson and it's making my life hard. I really need your help. That gives kids power, and kids love power. And so that's where I would take that from as well. I do need a drink. Thank you for my pink cup. So Stephen Herms is saying tips tech math for higher kindergarten. I'm going to be honest. I have no idea. And that's why it's Real Rap with Reynolds, because I don't have an answer for everything. But this is what I'm going to ask. If someone sees Stephen Herms in the comments section and you can help him out with tech math for higher kindergarten, maybe give him your email or shoot him a DM on Instagram or comment back to him on here. And let's see if we can help that dude out, because I don't have an answer for that. Because I don't teach math and I don't teach kindergarten, and I actually really suck at math. Probably even kindergarten math. And that is embarrassing.
No, you don't.
Dude, come on. I just use Siri all the time. So Kayla is saying, back again, that's fine. Since Parkland, has your school enacted any new guidelines regarding either their school's security or students' mental health? So, That's an interesting conversation. I'm trying to think of.
I think I've been talking about your black school, and that's on
Yeah.
You know,
Well, about my
real,
homie the other day too. So
that's the real difference.
I think, Kayla, I would say not because of Parkland have things happen, but I've lost 2 students this year that were students in my school to gun violence, right? One around Thanksgiving and one on Easter. And having gone to one of those funerals, and having been to other student funerals as well, it's a very, very hard topic in my school. And I see why, my boys kind of like try and push past that stuff as quickly as possible because they've dealt with a lot of this kind of violence in their lives before. And so I think it comes down to teachers. It's a more organic process. It's hard at this time of the year to really make changes because it's late in the year. So safety changes 100%. Like I think every time one of those things happens, it makes a school look at their security measures and figure out like what's working, what doesn't, what is an issue. When you're having lockdown drills, like, is there a good place to hide? Is your room is the whole window open and someone could just see in even if you're crowded in the corner? Like, what's the best way to make kids feel safe? But I think one of the things I'm noticing is that my students, maybe this is something for you guys to think about as well. My students have really started to have a voice. I had a student come to me the other day that said, when the Parkland shooting happened, we had this walkout for 17 minutes. He said, but 2 of our own have died this year and we haven't done anything about it or like had a moment to kind of like stand in solidarity with them and their families and the community. And he came to me to see what I thought like we could do. And my answer to him was, go find 5 more homies and then come back and see me. Like, make a little group and then let's have a conversation and let's see what we can do. And then we can go to admin about it and see like what we can put in place. So I think it is the school's responsibility, but you can't wait for the school. Like, what can you and your friend, and I'm saying this I'm hoping that, anyone that's hearing this would be responsible in what they're doing. Like, don't just go nuts. I had an old student that he graduated last year, my man Anardo, who took part in the Howard University sit-in. So people that don't know, there was this deal with like Howard University and they were like stealing money from students and all these other crazy things that were going on there. So the students took over the admin building and they did a sit-in for like 9 days or 11 days or something like that. And they handled it really well. Nothing was broken. Nothing was messed up. They didn't act a fool in there. They composed themselves, but they stood their ground and they wanted things to change. And they got some of the changes that they were asking for. And I just think it's an incredible example of the things that can be done if you learn how to stand your ground and be responsible when you're doing it. And we're actually going to have some of those guys, some of the older guys are going to come back and talk to our students about like why these sorts of things are important and what they mean later in life and like what's after school. And like, if you're thinking about, retaliation or gun violence, or you're in that situation, like you need to know that there's life after high school. And a lot of my students, I don't think really comprehend that because they haven't had folks in their family that have graduated from high school or gone on to college. So I think putting that power in the students' hands is a really, really important thing to do, but then also kind of guiding them through how to do that responsibly. Woodland Creature is asking, have you ever read Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds? I did not, because I just got it and it's gone. Like students have been reading it since I ordered a copy of it. I just finished it and I loved it. It is a novel in verse. Do you have any tips for reading aloud a novel in verse for students? I've not done that before. That's a really interesting idea. I would say, here's what I would say about that. I don't know that I would be a good fit for reading something in verse. Do you have a student that could do it? Could you pick certain students and say like, hey, on Thursday, I want you to read this part. Maybe you could read it ahead of time. Maybe you could, like find a student that sort of like embodies what's being read and have them read it. And it just kind of makes me think about audiobooks, right? Sometimes you get an audiobook and like, so for instance, try to listen to the Lord of the Flies audiobook as read by William Golding, and it was the most boring thing I'd ever read. Like, 'cause that's how he reads the whole time. And you're just like, dude, I want to just fall asleep forever. But if you get, the right person to read an audiobook, they can crush it and it really brings it to life. So I think about maybe either having students read it, or could you have guest readers come in? Maybe you have like someone with a strong voice, someone from the neighborhood, someone the kids know, another teacher that could read a portion of it. And you have like that happen 1 or 2 days a week. And even if it's like every Monday, it's like guest reader day and someone comes in and reads a part of the book, that's going to totally bring the kids in. And I think that would be, I might actually do that now. So thanks for that idea. Stoppers?
Oh my
gosh, I'm seriously the worst. So I apologize. I can't pronounce your name, but the question is, if you make some seemingly really messed up mistakes as a teenager and it's known, can you recover and still be able to become a teacher? Hell yeah, dude. Let's talk about that for a second. I think, kids that have never made mistakes, kids that have never kind of messed up, I think aren't let in on a secret of like what it's like to mess up, to really have like, get some dirt under your nails, some experience. And I'm not saying this as a way to say like, hey kids, go make bad choices. Although I do say that to my students all the time, jokingly, when they leave. I do say that to my children. I go, make bad choices and don't listen to anyone.
And get in
trouble. But it's kind of like, I think kids hear ridiculousness more than they hear like, hey, have a good weekend, or like, be good, or like, make the good choices. I think if you say the opposite, they just hear you better. I also think that there's something to say. There's a writer who I'm going to forget what his name is. Maybe it'll pop in my head in a moment, who talks about kind of like the arch of a person's life, right? And one of the things he talks about is how at some point in our lives, we go through loss, or we go through like a deep longing. Like maybe your parents got divorced. Maybe you lost someone in your life, someone died. And how that really built, like, it gives you this kind of mogul to get over. And if you can get over it, if you can work through it, all that difficult stuff that it takes to get through that, whether it was a court case or a split up or someone died or you failed really bad or you got kicked out of school. But if you can grow through that, how like that puts you on a different level than a lot of people. And so they say that like, wisdom is something that we all attain and usually find it later in life. But if you go through it, have a really tumultuous childhood and you get through it, then you can kind of find some of that wisdom earlier than a lot of your peers. And so I think going through things that are challenging, messing up, what it is, to me, it's always about like, what did you learn from it? What was the outcome of that? And if you really deeply learn from it, there's a ton of things you can do from that. You can, if nothing else, you can speak to children in a way that says, I've been there. I've done that. I've had that situation. I messed up. I know what I'm talking about. Not because I grew up in a world where like I was allowed to remain innocent into my high school years, or where nothing ever went wrong and both of my parents loved me. Because I mean, that's what I want for my children. But and I think there's something to that that's empowering and wonderful. But going through the hard stuff, there is so much value in that if you come out the other side wiser and you use that experience for good. Because kids are always like, if I try, for instance, I feel like when I speak to students who have lost someone about losing a family member or a friend, I've been there. I've gone through that. I know firsthand what that can be like, as opposed to someone trying to speak to them that hasn't been through that. Doesn't mean their advice has any less value or love, but I just think that there's a piece of authenticity that comes from that. So yeah, man, use that to your advantage. And if you want to email me and we can talk about that a little deeper, if you want, like hit me up and let me know. It's Real Rap with the Reynolds. It's the old name at gmail.com. So Kayla's asking, Do you think a principal, whether it's good or bad, makes an impact on a school's students and teachers? Are we talking about like an actual principal, like the person that's in charge? Yeah, totally. It's like leadership can really, it is the lens through which the school is run, right? So like what the principal thinks is important and not important. Like if they don't think the arts are important and they can try and cut that out, that's important. But I don't think it's the be all end all. I think the people in the school, the students and the teachers, have power that like some teachers and students don't realize the amount of power that they have, that if they get together and they come up with a good idea, how they can push that forward in a way in which they're using kindness and love and responsibility, and not just like starting a riot, not just like getting a whole bunch of people that are mad, they're going to show up with like pitchforks and torches or something like that, but they're going to stand their ground and they're going to say what is that is so important to them because they can't help but not. And so, yeah, I just think of all, how many movements have been started from regular people just standing up for what they believe in, and not like the president of somewhere standing up for what they believe in, right? Like it's like, I just think that those have been the movements, and if you look back through history, that have really held the most impact, that really like that we've made days out of people, like, because they've stood their ground and they've done what was right. Kimberly is asking, do you ever have teaching assistants help you? So in my school, we have teaching assistants, but they're students. And so in the beginning of the year, students that are applicable, meaning like they have decent grades and they have an opening in their schedule. So they haven't like had to, maybe there's like, instead of a study hall, they will be a teacher's assistant. And from my class, they have to apply. I have a McDonald's application that I've modified from Fiji. And there's a coloring page on the back. And what the students have to do is answer all of the questions and then color in the back of the page. And that's going to do a couple of things. It's going to let me see if you were willing to look up my ridiculous questions, like why are there fuzz on tennis balls and how many snow shovels are sold in the US every year? If you're willing to go that extra mile and actually find that stuff out. And it shows me your attention to detail. So are you going to color that thing in nice on the back? Does it look like crap? And if you don't have attention to detail, I don't want you to come into my room and stapling stuff, because it's going to be stapled like you were having a seizure on the back of a bus or something like that. So I think that, student teaching assistants are really, really valuable. It also gives kids like an insight into like what it's like to be a teacher and all the work we have to do. And it helps the teacher out a little bit, and the school doesn't have to pay them anything. I just buy my guys like donuts every once in a while, or like, lunch once a trimester, and they're super stoked about that. Tracy Pinter is asking, what is your take on the effects of poverty on students as it relates to education? Man, Stacy, I apologize. Tracy, gosh, where do we start, right? It has to do with everything. It has to do with kids that don't have money, that are eating, popcorn and potato chips and soda for breakfast, as opposed to like an egg or something healthy. It's the difference between eating a Pop-Tart and something nourishing for lunch. It has to do with, do kids have internet? Like I can't do, I don't use a lot of technology in my room, even when it has to do with cell phones, because not every kid has a cell phone, or not every kid has data, or not every kid has a smartphone, or kids are embarrassed about the cell phone that they have because they don't have the iPhone X. They have some Cricket mobile phone that they dropped 97 times, and I can't even believe they can see the screen. It looks like stained glass now. So, it has to do with like kids, not having the special education programs that they need to to help them where they can. And because they go to a school that has minimal resources, it has a huge, huge impact on schools. And like I've said before, it's one of those things that like, I can't even believe that living in the richest country in the history of the world, that we have to talk about school budgets, and that we don't just have all the resources available that we could ever need to break down these old constructs of like how we do stuff and implement new things, especially when it's not even like we have to recreate the wheel. Like other countries are already doing things that we can totally take from them. We just have to reallocate our resources because, like Whitney Houston said, I believe that children are the future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. And I should sing that, but I'll probably get I shouldn't because I'll get demonetized. Because they'll be like, "Oh,
yes, right?
Is that Whitney?" Yeah, that's my take on that. Nemesis Jimenez, man, I really think I said that right. I love that last name. I used to have a lot of students with that last name. Any students or any ideas how I can implement Tupac into 4th grade curriculum? Thank you. Yep. A Rose Grows from Concrete, right? First of all, is a really great poem that, or it's a song that you can turn into a poem and then break down things like how are your students, there's a whole bunch of lessons based on that. I'm trying to think of, I know someone that has one. Do me a favor. If you email me, I will find out who that is or what that lesson is and I'll send it to you. But if you really just look stuff up online, you can find a ton that has to do with that. I also think Nas is really someone that you can, was a really strong. I think Nas is one of the greatest hip hop artists of all time. I also think that he was one of the last hip hop artists of the 90s to really like not go all like glam, like kind of like Puffy took over and Biggie, and then hip hop went from like one thing into like yachts and gold and watches and stuff. And I think that has its place, but Nas was trying to speak from a place where like trying to empower young people. And I think Tupac was in a lot of ways also, but I think there's a lot of value. If I think of the song, like what was the Nas song? I forget. If you just look up Nas songs on YouTube, it's the video with all the little kids in it. I'm blanking on the name. I'm also thinking you might want to look at this again. And this might be inappropriate for 4th grade, but I'd have to look at the lyrics again. I like talking about when Tupac talks about the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice, because I think there's and I'm not even the dude to necessarily talk about this, but I do it anyway, because I hate when my guys diss one another about the color of their skin, how like lighter skin African-American kids are always hardcore dissing kids that are dark, especially in the summer. And they like come down on, there goes a boy. They come down on them because of the color of their skin. And I think that that's a really interesting conversation where it's like, where does that come from? Where like historically, where does that come from? And how damaging is that to a community that like we should be uniting around one another? We should be embracing man, you really just made me a lot brighter. So I just think that that's a really interesting conversation. And I think there's tons of old hip hop that lends itself to all kinds of interesting conversations, from Public Enemy to KRS-One and Boogie Down Productions and things like who am I thinking of? I think Beastie Boys. I think Tribe Called Quest have a lot of interesting like social commentary that you could talk about. Star Lutz, Lewt, is saying, firstly, when you have students write letters to themselves during the first week of school, what questions, topics do they have to include? So I think I have a video about this that you can, maybe I'll link it in the description below. But I ask them they're essentially taking a snapshot of who they are right now, right? So what's your favorite song? Because in 4 years, sometimes 5 years, that song is going to be old, especially in hip hop culture, right? Like what was hot last summer is totally not hot now. Who do you live with? Where do you live? What does your room look like? What do you see yourself doing after high school? What do you see yourself doing after college? What is your favorite TV show right now? Your favorite snack right now? Who's your best friend? If you teach, I always this is totally stereotyping, but boys typically have the same best friend that they had in 9th grade when they're in 12th grade. Girls typically did not have the same best friend 2 weeks after starting 9th grade. And I always thought that was really funny because, and I know the only reason I'm going with this is because I'd seen kids write names down and then talk to them 12th grade. And they're like, oh my gosh, I hate her. I'm not friends with her anymore. And that was always really kind of stood out to me and was amusing. So they're really just trying to take a snapshot of who they are now. And you can go online and find like student questionnaires or bios, and then just put those questions up on the board, or, you know, have them write a letter to their future self. Hello, future self. And ask questions like, hey, rate, and this is totally private. So you're not looking at this. The students are writing this in confident, like, so they have a feeling of safety. They can be, they can write what they want without fear that someone's going to look at it. Like, I like this person, and did that ever work out? Or my parents have been arguing a lot and they're talking about divorce. Did they ever get divorced? Or my mom's pregnant and we don't know if it's going to be a boy or a girl. Like, what did it turn out being? So you're essentially taking all these things that are a big deal now. And sometimes in 4 years, one of the things you learn is that, you know, things are going to be all right. Or what was really, really important to me 4 years ago is just not that important to me anymore. And I think that's a good lesson for students to learn. It helps them learn about stress and about what they're stressing about and what the future holds. And I think that that's a really great thing for them to be able to do. That's my actual favorite part of giving those back. So Lindsay Spades is saying, hi, I'm having a hard time with parents making excuses for their kids and letting them make mistakes. I hear you. Do you have any advice for fostering more resilience in the classroom? I would say, wow, a couple of things. One, you know, if you take a step back, and I don't know if you have children or not, but being a parent really changed the way that I thought about parents when I started teaching. I just think I have a lot more grace now, because I think at the end of the day, most parents just want their kids to do well. They want them to look right. And some parents do that for the wrong reasons. They want to look good. And so that if their kid looks bad, then they look like they don't have their crap together. And I know I feel like that. If someone throws a temper tantrum in Target, then I'm just like, wow, I look like a bad dad right now. So, you know, so I think being mindful of the fact that, like, you know, parents are trying to do the best that they can. So sometimes assume the positive in that, right? So call a parent, say like, hey, I'm noticing this, and I'm not judging. I'm trying to, like, I want to figure out the best way to, like, help your guy or girl do the best that they can, have the best experience. How can we do that? Like, what are your answers for that? Because, and also remember that parents, you know, most of the time know their kids better than the teachers do. And so call up and say, what are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Here's some behavior I'm noticing in class. Like, what do you do at home to handle this behavior? And so a lot of times parents have that, especially if they're working hard to be good parents. So having that conversation with the parent really, really works. I think also talking to other teachers that have had that student or currently have that student in their class, that can become a conversation too, where you're holding that kid accountable in all of his classes for all the same things. So if that looks like someone has ADD or someone doesn't finish their homework, like, what are you as a team? What kind of things are you going to put in place to help that kid to find success, being as though they don't do their homework, or mom finishes their homework, or they have a hard time staying still, or they go to the bathroom every 3 seconds? Like, what are you as a team going to do to kind of like help out with that? And then sometimes talking to the kid too and saying like, this is what I'm noticing. Can we talk about this real quick? And I don't think they have to be any certain age to do that. I think you could do that with a third grader or a fourth grader and say, this is stuff that I'm noticing. I think you're this kid, but I'm noticing a little bit of this kid. Like, can you help me figure that out? Because like, I think maybe I feel like you're trying to get away with something, or you're not working as hard as you could. And like, what can we do to help you work, like get up here and not kind of be down here? I think that's an easy conversation.
I would say that's right.
Two-part. All right. I think this is my last one. Professor Ben 10 is saying, I mean, which teacher looks for summer project? Did I read that? Oh, I read that out of order. So I have a question. Does your school assign summer projects? If yes, what are they like, and who looks at them the following school year? I mean, which teacher looks at the summer project? So my students do. We as a group, as a team, as the English department, we all suggest books that we think students would like. and that some of those are worth like a certain grade, and then you can read like a higher level text for extra credit. And then there are projects that go along with that. Those projects it gives students a lot of choice as to what they want to do with what they've read. And then the literature and composition teachers the following year, we split those up. So part of that project is graded by the comp teacher, part of it's graded by the literature teacher. And here's what I like about this is that one, it keeps kids reading over the summer, right? It's not a real heavy duty project, but you do have to read. And if you're in an honors class, you have to read 2 books over the summer. I like that kids are reading over the summer. I like that when they come back, there is this immediate grade, and I am 100% hardcore that like, if you don't hand this in and you don't have a real good like excuse, like you just moved to Philadelphia 2 weeks ago, you are going to start off the year on the wrong foot, because that lets kids know from day one that don't mess around. I don't do extra credit. I don't do makeup work. But it also lets me have this conversation about failure, about, all right, you start off on the wrong foot, but like, dude, we don't have to stay there. Let's 100% get behind this and like help you work to where you need to get to. And I think that's a voice that the kids like it's good for them to hear that like, I'm not just trying to like crush them, but I'm, I want to help them grow, and like this is the best way for them to grow. So that's kind of how we work that out. Any other questions? Dope. All right. So May 4th.
Wait a minute.
Oh.
I don't think somebody said like they don't get out of work until 3:30. So you're not really but you shouldn't tell people 4 o'clock, because then it's going to make them feel like they can't get.
All right, that's a good point. So let's say
revamp it and make it.
I will be there at 4 p.m. You can show up whenever you want. If you get out of work at 6 or at 8, or you have to go home and give your, you have to like, let's say you have to like go home, give your kids dinner, and then like you're waiting for your sitter to come over and you can get there at 6 or 7. Dude, I'm down. Like I just want to make it work for people. So I get that, like, I don't want you to feel rushed. Don't feel like you have to leave school immediately, or that you can't come because it's too close to the time that you get done school, or you don't get out till 4:30 because you're a workaholic and you stay in your classroom until 9 o'clock at night, sleep on the couch. Not saying people I know do that, Cho, but some people I work with do that. Be like, I want you to be comfortable, and just hit me up if that's an issue. You can send me a DM on Instagram and I'll know that you're on your way. And look, I'm going to stay there until like everyone leaves. So, because I'm super excited about this. And don't forget, we have a P.O. Box now. It's P.O. Box 11 at Gloucester City, New Jersey, 08030 in the USA. So if you have stuff, people have been asking me about sending stuff. So go ahead and send that on over, and I would be happy to look at whatever you're sending me. Anything else?
Look out for the new podcast.
And look out for that new podcast. More information is coming, and I'll reveal who those 2 individuals are that are going to do it. But everyone's going to love it. It's going to be super awesome. And that's it, guys. Thanks for watching this. I hope that helped with you with whatever you got going on this week. And that's it. Peace. Awkward ending. Here we go.